Welcome to the BG5 Foundation Foundation course number one. This is called Your Personal Operating Style, and today is June the 9th, 2021, and we're in class 6, which means we are going to talk about the evaluator career type today. And I and Melissa and Petya, we are here once again to support your journey and your learning, and also as builders to keep the energy moving along. Here is the class outline that you're going to see every week so that, again, we know where we have been, where we are, and where we're going. So again, today we'll look at the evaluator type. Next week, we're going to dive into assimilation, which I have the thought is going to be fun for you, informative, and also action-packed. And then we'll finish out our last 3 classes with the shadows and the distractions of our open functions. And so today's class agenda, we're going to go over the homework assignment. Any questions and comments? I've actually included some of the questions from the forum that I could get in here into the webinar for today. And then we will dive into our evaluator career types. We are so lucky in that we have 2 evaluators in our class. We have Brian and we have Tam. So I'm really excited that we have you guys here with us. Before we go into the quick review and the homework assignments, then Jen, I know you shared with me you had not introduced yourself yet. Will you unmic yourself or unmute yourself and share where you are, what your background is with these 2 systems of human design and BG5, and what you are seeking to get out of the course with us. And thank you for getting up at, I think it's 3 a.m.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm in Sydney, Australia, and it is 3 a.m. here. So I literally just rolled out of bed 10 minutes ago. So my background is in the marketing, in the business niche, and I've been in that niche for the past decade. And I came across human design around 3 months ago. And when it came into my life, I was immediately very curious because I've done 10 different personality tests since 2015, because I was driven to want to find out more about myself. And the more I learned about it, the more it made sense to me, because it just confirmed so many things that I've learned on my own personal development journey and the inner work that I've done for myself. And I resonated a lot with being an advisor, the experiencing inconsistent energy, the obsession with like wanting to master systems. And I kind of really identified with why I was obsessed with wanting to find out about, wanting to find and understand myself, because I could just see that my identity and direction center is completely open. And it was really through my own business journey as an entrepreneur that I was able to find myself over the last 10 years. And so being in that marketing space, I really wanted to learn more about human design and become a BG5 consultant, so I can combine my knowledge in this area with what I'm doing in the marketing space to help business owners and entrepreneurs. So I'm really looking forward to becoming certified and learning and diving in a bit more, and basically going down this rabbit hole for the next couple of years.
Oh, you're so coherent. 3 3 a.m. in the morning. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And I look forward to doing the overview with you, Jen. I'm going to ask you if you'll stay after class, maybe for 1 or 2 minutes, just you and me, and we'll see if we can't set that up. That works for you.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you very much, Tuck.
Yes. Lynette, I saw you come in. I don't want to put you on the spot. However, given you haven't introduced yourself, would you? I don't think you have. If you haven't, will you unmute and introduce yourself? And if you have,
Sure. Can you hear me?
absolutely.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
It won't let. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Perfect.
My name is Lynette Sierra, and I took some classes with the International School of what is it called? Human Design, IHDS,
Yes.
with Carol Zimmerman. And this was in 2014. I took a couple of classes, and then I've done some self-study. I have a foundation of astrology. I've done the gene keys, the whole activation sequence, Venus and the Pearl. But I was interested in the business because it speaks differently. And it was for myself to help me kind of know what I'm supposed to be doing or how I can operate within a business structure. Having that open G, I feel like I get confused. I get confused with my roles. I'm sorry, I have my 6-year-old with me.
Okay, we may have lost you, Lynette. I believe you're fishbowling a little bit.
Summertime.
There you
So
are. Lynette, you're playing a beautiful tune. However, we can't fully hear it. Lynette, we can't hear you.
happens to be the day that yes, with that open G, it's been a bit challenging. Can you hear me
Now
so
I can hear you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello. Sorry, I am so sorry for the cross uncertainty. Everything is always, I feel like my vibration's always like that. So anyway, that's why I decided to take this course to go deeper into for the business sake.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. It's great to have you here. It's also great to have another 3420 here. Melissa and I, Melissa is a 3420. We were having a conversation prior to this class about Melissa. Your energy. Do you know Melissa?
Yeah, because I met her, in the Life Purpose Mastery group that I attended last year with Beth Davis, and she came on board really. And I always love how she explains human design. I know she's a 6-2 manifesting generator, I believe.
Express builder. Yes, she is. You can speak for yourself.
Yeah, and so am I.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of, when she speaks, I feel her energy. She reminds me a lot myself. I also do real estate. So I feel, so I have a lot, figuring things out.
Beautiful.
So yes, I've heard her speak many times. So I'm not able to attend all the time, but I listen to the replay.
Great. Thank you, Lynette.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Is there anyone else? I'll take a last call that has not introduced themselves, that has come in. I'm panning through the list, and I believe everyone that has been in attendance has introduced themselves. So I'm going to find my way back to the reviewing the assignment very quickly. You all, thank you for being here last week and for supporting Rick in the powerful way that you did. He was very excited to be here, and I told him he was very, very much appreciated. So to go through a couple of the slides as a reminder of what we did last week and what we've done up until this point, looking at the first layer of circuitry, as always, it bears repeating over and over again that the generative circuitry does create the builder. Projected circuitry creates the advisor. And the manifesting circuitry creates the innovator. That was what we did last week. Today, we will look at the reflective circuitry that creates our evaluators. How do you know when someone is an innovator? No red square, no energy resource function defined. One of these three motors, the willpower, emotional intelligence, and drive and stamina, will make their way to communication and action, either directly or indirectly, to create an innovator. That is 8% of the population. We know that the resistance of the innovator shows up as anger. However, when honoring their decision-making strategy of informing before taking action, that resistance is removed, and what is experienced is flow as a sense of peace. So here are the three decision-making strategies of the innovator, which is a three-part process. See what needs to happen or what needs to get started or initiated. Here are our three strategies: emotional clarity, instinctive knowing, willful determination. And then to inform before taking action, remembering that that's really not a natural practice. However, it is what removes the resistance as well as creating mutual respect. Here's the decision-making hierarchy with the three decision-making strategies highlighted. Here's another look at those same three decision-making strategies. Here are your celebrity innovator types for you to get a feel for the energy of an innovator, people who start something new. And if you look at each one of these individuals, you can see that in terms of comedy, certain books, Ra'uruhu. And then finally, we have included the three visuals for the three innovative decision-making strategies. So here was the homework. Given that you were and are an innovator, since we don't have any, this was the homework. Given you were not an innovator, what do you notice about the innovators that you know? Again, thank you for your contributions in the forum. I read through most of them, and I'm doing as much as I can to get some of the questions in here, along with Petra's response, and also some of the comments here and there to make sure everybody's voice gets heard. I don't know if Lynn is here. However, Lynn's question had to do with the instinct here and using her instinctive knowing to say yes to a project that at that time felt like a good fit. However, 3 days later, it did not feel right. So the question was it not the right invitation? Was it right 3 days ago and not now? Or is she just impatient? I laugh because I feel like everybody's impatient in this day and time. However, I loved your response, Petra, and particularly the part you are designed to instinctively know if it's right for you or not in the moment. Remember, the survival instinct function has a frequency that's existential. It's in the moment. It only comes one time. And so for you, Lynn, from moment to moment, your instinct, that sense may change for you. And so I believe you said it here as well, Petra, not to go back and doubt or analyze what that decision was. Trust that instinctive decision in the moment. So I'm going to check to see. I don't think Lynn's here. Petra, Melissa, is there anything that either of you want to add to Lynn's question? Or yeah. If y'all don't talk to me, I'm going to assume the answer is no. Okay. I have Momo's question in here as well. Hers was about the advisor types. So it was prior to the innovator class. It was a question around advisors, specifically the difference, the distinction between a classic advisor that's self-expressed and a mental advisor. What's the difference between the mental advisor's expression versus the classical advisor's consistency? Here are my thoughts. Here is my response. It's that the classic, we're looking at the identity and the direction function that is connected to communication and action. So it is the identity that is expressing. So there's the word express. It's the voice of that identity that's speaking in response to the invitation. So whatever you need to know is going to be felt and heard by hearing you express your own voice from the core of your identity. So to listen to the words that come out of your mouth as you're talking to others as a sounding board. And, you know, one of the greatest questions is, will this give me self-expression? Again, going back to that word. And again, to use your sounding board to hear what you say and how it feels in the core of your identity versus the mental advisor. That's what is defined is the mind. So it's strong, it's fixed, it's consistent, and yet it can't be trusted when it comes to decisions. What there is for a mental advisor to do with all of the open functions is to begin to sense the information that's coming in through those open functions from the environment, and to begin to trust and get to know what that true inner knowing and sensing is from taking in the outside influences. When we go through the open functions in the next 3 classes, we'll talk about the identity and direction function and how when it's open, those individuals always look to be in the right environment. So to ask, is this environment the right, does it feel right to me, literally in my body, knowing that right place is going to give you right people, right time. So the word there was consistency. So feeling the consistency in your body versus feeling the truth in the core of your identity and being, and that your identity and direction is not defined over here like it is for the classic advisor. You're listening here to your thoughts and then feeling into your body as to what's correct for you or not when you're speaking, and using the sounding board to hear what you say and feel how it feels in your body. And so that's my response to Momo. I will ask again, number one, Momo, does that answer your question? But before you say yes or no, is there anything, anything that you want to add, Petya and or Melissa?
I think the first question was very interesting about typing, if I remember correctly. So I would say that typing to someone is not the same as really talking to them, either live or by phone or online, because you don't hear your voice. And however, it is an expression of yourself and your identity for sure. Do you hear me?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think I would say the same thing, because I think their clarity comes from their own voice. Like they need a sounding board to put it out there, but not asking for their opinion, just having something to hear their own voice reflected back to them is where their clarity comes in.
So Momo, I see you're here. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks a lot.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much for your question. I was able to put your experience of the homework in here, Leah, and that some of what you said, I have the same experience with innovators, and you pretty much covered the full spectrum of the possibilities of how innovators do show up, and particularly here the distinction between the innovators in contrast to a builder volleying back and forth in a conversation versus the lecture version of the innovator, the not wanting to play by the same rules, marching to the beat of her own drum, as well as having a strong sense of self based on all of the innovators that you were in touch with and your perspective of them presenting their innovations, presenting themselves to the world as innovators. Also, Petya, your response that informing is one of the most transforming tools in their case. You know, what was shared with me quite often about innovators, in addition to that, was to be really powerful listeners, that the rest of the career types are looking to be heard so that they can be initiated. And so for innovators to practice listening is really, really important as well. So I don't know if there's anything, Leah, that I don't know if you can speak because you're typing into the chat box, but if there is anything that you prefer to add and are able to unmute, I invite you to do that. And maybe I'll ask that question first. Are you able to speak? No, I can't, not really. Okay. Anything to add for you, Melissa, to this piece on innovators? Because then I have a surprise for y'all.
I would say I have a similar experience. I was in a 20-year relationship with a manifestor, and at the time I didn't know anything about human design. But I do have a sense that when they're not necessarily in alignment with exactly how they're supposed to be, and in their, if they get into their not self, I do feel like they can kind of run over you and not be able to hear your input because they're really not looking for input. So they don't always play well with others. And I think as they become aware, they understand their role and they're able to contribute on a higher level because they're getting input from others and they're learning how to, play well with others.
Yeah, note to parents of innovator children, teach them to play well. That's well said, Melissa. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any other sharings? Because I've got a surprise for y'all here. I thought we could take a test and look at a couple of different slides here and ask you to unmute yourselves and or type into the chat box, but it'd be great to hear your voices as to what is the career type and what is the decision-making strategy. So for visual number one, image number one here, what is the career type and decision-making strategy? I'm not going to tell you, you guys have to guess. Mental advisor, Jen says. Anybody else? Got lots of advisor, mental advisor, advisor will, splenic advisor. Okay, advisor. All right. Here's how we do it, you all. We go, okay, we know they're not a builder because there's no energy resource function colored in. Therefore, this must be an advisor or an innovator. So next we'll look to see if there's a motor connected to the throat, to the communication and action. There is not. Therefore, this is an advisor. And if we go through our hierarchy, the emotional intelligence is not colored in, the survival instinct is. Therefore, this is a classic advisor with survival instinct. So a classic instinctual advisor. Y'all with me on that one? Somebody say yes. Want to make sure. Thank you. Okay. Number two, what is the career type and decision-making strategy for the second visual? Let's see, emotional manifestor, emotional advisor, energy, emotional manifestor. We must learn to use BG5 terms, you all. Okay, innovator. All righty. Let's go through the process. We know we don't have a builder. I feel like we all agree on that one. Do we have a motor to the throat? We do not, because this one doesn't reach, this one doesn't reach, and this one doesn't reach. Therefore, we have an advisor type. Given that this in the hierarchy is colored in, we have an energy advisor. So it's an emotional energy advisor. Does everybody see that one? Okay.
Can you just repeat that one more time?
Absolutely.
On the throat piece.
Yes. There is no motor connected to the throat. The drive and stamina, the emotional intelligence function, also the willpower function do not make their way to the throat. Therefore, it's not an innovator, it is an advisor. Okay. Thank you for your questions. Sometimes I just feel like I'm talking into the ethers. Okay. Image number 3. What do we say over here? What type do we have? Yes. Okay, do we have an innovator or an advisor? We have an innovator because the willpower function goes straight to communication and action. Therefore, we have an innovator. Emotional intelligence is open. Survival instinct is open. Therefore, we have a willful innovator. Okay. I got that one? Okay. How about image number 4? What is the type? I expect all of you to get this one correct because this is my chart. Yes. Okay, you are all absolutely correct. It is an emotional express builder. Thank you very much. That would be me. Number 5, what is the career type and decision-making strategy for number 5? Asking whether it is an innovator or an advisor, given that this is open, the energy resource function. Emotional innovator. Okay. The emotional intelligence function is a motor that finds its way directly to the throat. Therefore, we know this is an innovator with emotional clarity. So an emotional innovator. Then number 6, what do we have with number 6? Instinctive advisor. Yes, that was Jen. Good job. So energy resources open, no motor to the throat. In the hierarchy, the emotional intelligence function is open, yet the survival instinct is defined. So this is an energy advisor. We have the drive and stamina that's colored in. It's a motor, does not make its way to the throat. So an instinctual energy advisor, or an advisor, instinctual energy. Everybody get that one? Okay, y'all stop me if you're confused or if you don't get it. What is number 7? Yes. Number 7 is a mental advisor. There's nothing defined below the throat. How about number 8? Number 8. Okay, let's go through our process. We know it's not a builder. We look to see, does one of the motors find its way to the throat? We know the willpower is a motor. It's defined. So I'm tracing it all the way to communication and action. So number 8 is an innovator type. Then if we go through the hierarchy, the emotions are open, the survival instinct is colored in, so it is an instinctual or an instinctive innovator type. That's number 8. Okay. How about number 9?
Why
Oh God,
innovator? Sorry, why innovator? Can you
Yes.
repeat that again?
Absolutely. See this willpower function, the red triangle,
Okay.
finds its way to the identity function. And then
Okay.
if you follow my marker, it comes out of 10 on the left and goes straight up to communication and action. So we say it's indirectly connected to communication and action versus this would be directly. Does that make sense?
Okay. Okay.
And
I
that's
missed
how.
that line.
That's sneaky.
Yes.
It
Very.
is. It is. It's very, very sneaky. That's how come I put it on the test, y'all. Okay.
Hmm.
Number 9.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I think this is Ruhu's chart.
Is it?
If I'm not wrong.
You know, it may be. Petya, I took it out of the workbook. So yeah, thank you. Did y'all hear her say this is possibly Ruhu's chart as a
Well, tricky
Yeah.
with a reason.
Okay. All right. How about number 9? Do we know what number 9 is? Yes. Jen, great job. Yes, Momo. Well, it's a classic builder, and what's the decision-making strategy? Is it emotional clarity or follow your gut? Very good. It's follow your gut. Perfect. Okay, the last three, and then I'll stop. What is number 10? See no answers in the chat box, y'all. Self-advisor, advisor. Okay, very good. We know it's not a builder. There isn't even a motor colored in or defined, so we know it is an advisor. And the identity function finds its way to communication and action. I actually do believe this might be Momo's chart. This is a classic self-advisor. Does everybody get that one? Very good. How about number 11? What is the type and what is the decision-making strategy? This should be a giveaway over here, y'all. Okay, we got innovator and emotional. Very, very, very good. We know it's either an innovator or an advisor, and that this is open. We have a motor that finds its way to communication and action. Therefore, it's an innovator. This is number 1 in our hierarchy, so it's an emotional innovator. Everybody good with number 11? Perfect. And we are ahead of the game on number 12, I see. Number 12 is what? Okay. It is an advisor with willful decision-making strategy. Remember also that it's in that category of an emotional advisor versus a classic advisor, if you can get used to that. So that when you're working with advisors, you have a feel for whether or not they are energy advisors versus a classic advisor. So this is an willful energy advisor, number 12. You all did very well. Are there any questions before we dive into our evaluator types? Anything for you, Melissa or Petya?
I think this is a great exercise.
I know, wasn't it fun? Okay. Thank you. All righty. We're going to go into our evaluator career type. Again, I'm really, really, really excited that we have 2 evaluators. I have the thought I'm going to say advisor, so y'all have to correct me. 2 evaluator types in class. We have Brian and we have Tam, and lo and behold, their designs are pretty much exactly the same. They were both born on the same day. So we have an evaluator type with the same career design. So welcome to class. I'm going to be pulling you in along the way and asking you about your own experience of what's coming out of my mouth, in that I'm not you and I'm not your type, and you have an experience of yourself that I do not. So welcome to class, Brian. I don't believe Tam's here. So you're going to be in the hot seat today. So we'll begin in the perfect world. Here we're wrapping up our 4-class journey on career types. Here with the evaluator, the rarest type of all, being 1% of the population that we call our canaries in the coal mine. So again, don't we all want to be creating a perfect world when we walk out the door today? Innovators, you're here to get things up and running, to do that very impactfully and powerfully, and inform before you do. Builders, we want to be using our life force energy in a really positive way, moving that energy along rhythmically as classic builders, and I'm going to say quickly as express builders. And then those of you who are our advisors, definitely to be recognized, to wait for the recognition and the invitation so that you can gently and beautifully guide and direct our processes And then we will look to our evaluators to let us know how we're doing, how well we are working together or not, and that they're going to have their finger on the pulse of humanity. And so we finish out our reflective circuitry by looking at the first layer of circuitry by looking at the reflective circuitry that specifically creates, the evaluator type where we have no strengths or functions defined, where the circuits are open, and what the evaluators are open to is conditioning. So the undefined traits and strengths and functions are areas where the evaluator can be deeply conditioned, where their shadows and distractions, when activated, will throw you off track and then maybe have you make decisions from your mind versus your decision-making strategy that we're going to talk about today. And to know that these areas are not consistent and reliable for you. What they do is reflect, what they do is sample, and that these are areas where you become deeply, deeply, deeply wise. And so how do we know if someone is an evaluator? Very simply, we look at the design and we see there are no functions defined. All 9 functions remain white and open. And so rather than having defined strengths bringing a fixed definition like all of the other types, evaluators have only traits that are activated in their design, and the traits will eventually form a strength when it's connected, when the evaluator connects to others and or when they connect with the daily shifting themes of the transiting, planetary celestial bodies, particularly the moon, as we'll see today. So the unusual way that evaluators process and experience energy is different than the rest of the world, which means that you as an evaluator, Brian, you lived by a completely different set of rules than the rest of the world in how you process and experience energy and the world. 99% of us work one way, 1% of you work the other way as evaluators. And so again, to see how quickly and easily an evaluator is recognized without the strengths and the functions being defined, know that without any definition and with this much openness that, mechanically you're actually designed to take things in, to allow them to pass through you. I'm going to even say like an open window, so that you can sample and get a flavor of what's going on in the environment. Clarity is another word that comes up for me. This allows you this openness to reflect people, to reflect the environment, the world around you, and know that that takes time. So the key for you is going to be to follow the lunar cycle and wait, knowing that your waiting time lasts approximately 28 days, one cycle of the moon. But that's going to allow you to get this feel for a bigger picture, to gain clarity and understanding of what's going on. So know that your openness gives you access to a deeper and a more profound type of wisdom that is not available to any of the other career types. This is what makes you unique, and this is what makes you really, really rare. Know that when you're out of alignment, what you're going to experience is disappointment. That's the feeling that your resistance is going to come in, is disappointment. It's going to let you know that you're possibly taking things personally, trying to fit in, definitely not operating accurately, and not owning what truly makes you unique. However, when you are honoring your mechanics and you are operating in alignment, what you'll experience is flow, and how that shows up for you is in this sense of surprise and awe and wonder and delight. And what you'll find yourself surprised by at times are injustices, inappropriate actions and behaviors of others. And when you're aligned, there will be this sense of being neutral and unattached, while at that same time you're being surprised, and you don't take it personally. You literally do witness, and you objectively see the world and humanity from a really, really, really unique perspective. So sidebar, remember, all of the other career types may have undefined strengths, these open, reflective strengths that can either throw us off from a shadow behavior or become our deepest wisdom. FYI, here are a couple of charts of famous evaluators. We have Sandra Bullock, American actress. We have H.G. Wells, English writer. We have the handsome Richard Burton, English actor. And we have U.S. Olympic gold medalist figure skater, Scott Hamilton. So Brian, you're in really good company. So here is what Ra has to say about evaluators, which is exciting, I think, and important to read in context of today's world and how evaluators are showing up today, effectively aligned with who they are versus not knowing who they are and operating from conditioning as if they are one of the other types, and then feeling disappointed because they're not really clear how they fit in. We are, as we keep saying in design, moving into a new age. And so it's going to be important that all of us as types are operating accurately together. So it is important for you evaluators to know who you are and what you're here to contribute. And Ross says many of the characteristics that differentiate evaluators today resonate from a time when our earliest human ancestors lived in harmony with the cosmos, with the universe, in flow with nature and in community with one another. And that a new natural hierarchy is beginning to emerge in which the evaluator is going to play an exquisite, I love that word, exquisite role as you stand for ultimate justice with your quiet, with your unobtrusive aura. You're going to feel your rightful place at the center of the type hierarchy. Of all the types, you're in the center by reflecting back into the world the not self injustices that you see humanity perpetrating on itself, and that you're here to prod humanity toward a cooperative, just, peaceful, and equitable global community in preparation for those being born after 2027 with spirit awareness. And so, oh great evaluator, Brian, if you are willing, is there anything that you have heard thus far before we go into the success codes, that anything feel true for you, not true for you, anything that you would like to share with us as our resident evaluator?
Sure. I think from what I have seen and read, other evaluators like myself, when they read or hear that, they get overwhelmed by that because it seems really heavy, but it also seems really inspirational as well. For myself personally, it's been interesting to hear and read that, because I think there's always been that core underlying what I've done, but I've not allowed it to kind of surface, or I've conditioned myself, or others have conditioned me to not kind of have that be the forefront or take the lead. And so the last several months, as I've been thinking about that, I'm like, yeah, the spiritual connection, the idea that there's something larger out there, that there's a system in play, that it's just not random, has always been there. And I think for me, learning this has been helpful to give me a little bit more of the confidence to say, yeah, that is who I am, and I no longer want to keep it hidden under a bushel basket, and it's time to step into who I am.
That's beautiful. Well said. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm trying to remember, you're in the financial services still, Brian, or?
Yes. Yeah, I'm still in that area right now.
Okay. How does that work with being an evaluator?
It's kind of funny because my role has been a compliance officer. And so my role is to monitor people's behaviors and tell them when they're in and out of sync with what the process and policies and procedures are. And there are times when I've enjoyed it, and other times when I've gotten really, for me, I've always said frustrated, but the disappointment that comes is a whole another level of like anticipating when you
Mm.
see somebody do something, you're like, why are they doing that? And then being the one that's come in and like kind of enforce it. I find that I don't necessarily like the enforcing part of it. It's more of like the awareness and trying to find those individuals that understand the process is more enjoyable, and to hold them out as examples.
Do you find that people are asking for your, I'm going to say, experience feedback of environments and what's going on?
Yeah, the last 10 years I've been in a manager role, and I found that, especially as I look back, being kind of in that center I've enjoyed it, but I didn't realize why I enjoyed it. And I didn't feel like I was getting work done personally, but I was able to connect with what people were doing and then share with leadership, like just the general sense and the vibe, and how the collective was handling stuff, whether it was good or bad or indifferent. And there were times when I would take it on too personally, and I wasn't sure, like, is this how I'm feeling? And I think that's when I would get frustrated and get really disappointed when I started carrying the load. But then as I look back, I realize, what I was doing was just having that sense for what everybody was saying, and what everybody was feeling, and being able to articulate that.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to keep bringing you in as I talk about success code 1, 2, and 3, and ask again if what I'm sharing feels resonant with you or not. So thank you. I appreciate your being here. So success code number 1, you all, as an evaluator, I want to talk to you, Brian. Evaluators stand alone with their totally unique perspective and their quiet, unobtrusive auric presence, as Ross shared. And as you alluded to a minute ago, you've got an extraordinary role to play in the changing times and for the future of humanity. So when you're in that right environment, you're going to provide an objective assessment of the people and the communities and the businesses, with your totally unique perspective, because you have this ability to reflect and gain this overview that accurately evaluates how things are progressing, going to say, or not. And to know that you are here to lift up the energy of others, you are here to enliven the environment, and that you're very accepting of others and naturally support them to see what's not working. And I'll say gently guide them towards cooperation, peace, and equality. You are born with this really special attunement to the cosmic environment. And so you have this ability with all these open functions too, to sense the physical, the psychic, and the emotional health of an environment and a community and a group. And so you can, in quotes, judge that correctly or not based on where you are energetically. So with this special attunement to the global conditioning program, you have this capacity to really, really measure where other people are in terms of being attuned or not. You can sense who's living authentically. You can sense who's not living authentically, having become conditioned by the environment around them. You can see who's moving towards or away from fulfilling, their full potential. And that's what makes evaluators really good consultants, managers, coaches, and that they empower others towards their authenticity and towards their greatness. So with this ability to amplify and reflect and mirror other people's energy back to them, when you're operating correctly, again, your energy is unimposing, it's non-intrusive, and you have this really heightened sense of awareness in how to understand and work with others. The chemistry of your 9 open, undefined functions actually allows you to sample the environment as well as to magnify the frequencies of everyone and everything in your environment. when this is a really good thing, it makes you an effective facilitator of groups, an effective person that's going to lead and guide a group process. However, given you're operating incorrectly, you can still become amplified, but the amplified version is an amplified version of the homogenized world around you. So your access to your wisdom, to have that, you've got to be aware of your shadows and the distractions of your openness. So you'll definitely want to be here for 8, 9, and 10 class. Otherwise, this can throw you off track by having you think that you are supposed to be something that you're not. So know that in your jobs, in your career, in your work, you have this gift of discernment. And you can discern if and when the people that you work with, your colleagues, your coworkers, even your boss, where are they in their work? Are they ready to move forward? Are they ready to step into and utilize? And are they utilizing their unique talents and skills in their jobs and in their positions? So again, when aligned with your career design, know that you're actually, this point I found really fascinating, you're actually less vulnerable to conditioning than the other career types. When you, as the evaluator, clearly understand your design, you'll actually avoid yielding to the pressures of society to conform, that homogenization, to be like everybody else. Your presence and your unique energy is going to, in quotes, protect you from identifying with anything around you that you may absorb or take in through that openness. And as you become wise about your process, as you do this work, you'll begin to remain wide, slam open to what's passing through you, which is going to allow you to detect anything in that environment that is out of alignment with the energies of you. So again, to speak to what makes you unique, you have an ability to live in harmony, which is a beautiful word, with nature, with the cosmos, in community, in the way that, as Ross said, the early human ancestors lived. However, in evolving and coming forward and over the course of our history, we have become thinking people. We make up that thinking is going to do something for us, and our way of surviving within the natural flow has been replaced by this mental, aggressive, and strategic approach to life. And so as we're moving towards 2027 and times are changing, it is you, the evaluator, you said that was kind of daunting, who is here to gently lead humanity back into the flow of nature and the cosmos. And I have the thought that we've heard evaluators live somewhat of a mystical life because they are connected to the cycles of the moon and the other planets and celestial bodies. So they have this way of being, this way of life that most people are never going to know or understand, and that we are not evaluators. You are here to sample, to be one with all that is the totality, and to filter this ever-changing consciousness field that we all live in, and gently support the rest of us, Brian, to awaken to our new global consciousness. Sounds like a really big deal, and you are. So the key, just to look at a few of the keys to an evaluator's success code up. You're best when you express your gifts in the heart of a community or a business, or you're actually in the center of a group, because this is going to allow you to freely move around, where you can sample and reflect how things are working out as a whole or not. There's always the or not. You can be an effective group facilitator. You're accepting of others, you reflect the truth, you teach us how to embrace diversity, and you operate with a completely different set of rules than the rest of us do as other types. So it's important not to try to fit in, and know that being a healthy evaluator has everything to do with how you feel about you versus being concerned about what others think about you and how you fit in with their picture of who you are and what you're designed to do. So own and appreciate your 1% uniqueness and wear it with absolute confidence. Since you are reflecting the environment, remember, right place, right people, right opportunity, right time, right reflection. And that when you're here, You're operating at your best. You're in alignment. You stay neutral and unattached as the sampling observer. You have this potential to develop great wisdom. And as I said a minute ago, wisdom that the rest of us as other types may not have the same access to. And you don't have a fixed identity. In that you don't have a fixed identity, you can feel different always, 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 depending on what environment you're in and what people you are with. So anything to add or say about the success code 1, Brian? And I know you didn't know you were going to be called on maybe as much as you are, but I'd love to hear again what resonates with what I have said so far.
Sure. There's so much that resonates. I think 2 points specifically that resonated for me was the idea of not trying to fit in. I think that's just something that you want for so long, especially as you're growing up, and there's just always that sense for that. So I think an evaluator who can pause and appreciate their uniqueness definitely can go a long way. I know that's helped me out in just these last 3 months since I've started down this journey. And then the other one, do you mind going back to your slide really quick?
I'm happy to go back to that slide. Give me one moment. This one or this one?
That one, fixed identity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one is very, very different. And it goes back to trying to fit in. I have so many interests and so many things that I enjoy and like. And I love just talking with people and hearing about what they're doing. But there's a sense of absorbing some of that information sometimes and walking away thinking, oh, I could do that. I could be that. I could do this sort of thing. And having to ride through that emotional wave of just like having that openness can be challenging, and embracing that and finally for me saying, okay, I am not one thing, I am everything, has helped me just to pause and appreciate like being there, being in the moment than trying to be somewhere where I'm not. The environment is another interesting element, which I'm not sure how other types feel, because in the society that we have, where you get a job and you if you're not comfortable with like moving around a lot or trying to figure that out, I think that's challenging for evaluators to figure out like, where do I find that environment? Or if I buy a home, that's a big financial commitment. If I don't like the home, then you might feel stuck, and then you're trying to figure out like how to do that. So an evaluator who can understand that early on and start applying that, I think would obviously make their lives much better. Because I think about those big decisions like, okay, I'm going to get a job, but how do I know if I'm going to like the environment? You have a very small amount of time to figure that out in certain areas. So the idea of waiting and giving yourself that time to let it process is huge, but the rest of the world doesn't move that way. So
wouldn't it be great if you could tell your potential employer, I need 28 days. I need 28 days to make my choice.
Yeah. So those are some strange areas to like kind of work with and try to then figure out how do you tell other types and help them understand where you are when they've got their own agendas and things that they're working through too.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. Okay, so that's the key to your success so far, Brian. We're going to look at your personal interaction style, which is what is your nonverbal presence doing as you move around in your different environments. And we said this a couple times, that you have a gentle nonverbal presence that reflects others through sampling the energy around you, that your presence shows up as gentle and quiet and unimposing and non-intrusive, and that you are reflecting the environment as a whole. So it may be difficult for others to fully get you, and you may feel very different from everyone else. One of the reasons why it's difficult for others to get you is because you are reflecting them. So what they see in you is them. The one experience that I've had with an evaluator that was precious and surprising. I was facilitating with Raleigh Floyd at one of the empowerment of listening workshops, and it's his business. He was an always facilitator, and this was my first time in front of the room facilitating with him years ago, and I was really, really scared. And he said, "Don't worry, Tuck, you got this." And so we went through the program, and at the end I walked up to him and I said, "Oh my God, that felt so easy. Raleigh, I felt like I was with myself. I felt like I was with myself." And I went home to calculate his career design chart, and I'll be doggone if he wasn't an evaluator. And so I thought, what a powerful and present evaluator, in that I was actually interacting with my own reflection in interacting with Raleigh. So that was kind of fun. And that's my one example of being with an evaluator. So when
That's
you,
sorry, Chuck. I was just gonna say, I think
yes,
that's a cool story. Because I think as you're describing that, where I could get the sense as an evaluator is being comfortable with letting someone else shine and kind of following the lead, really following the lead. So you're orchestrating, and you can imagine the evaluator just kind of there as support, floating behind you a little bit, knowing when to
yeah.
step in, when to step back, but also making sure the spotlight is on you.
It was easy. That's the word, the ease, literally the ease of the interaction allowed me to stay fully present. I make up in that he was fully present in the process. So yeah, it was fun. So I don't know if this is true for you or not, but frequently as an evaluator, there may be times, because of your non-intrusive, unimposing, quiet and gentle presence, you might feel unseen. You might feel, as if you are invisible. That seems to be something that evaluators say, they feel invisible. So with the presence showing up like this, that is a possibility. So to look at what your personal interaction style is, specifically, it's to wait, to reflect, and to discuss. So it's important to realize, again, how really, really, really unique and rare you are as an evaluator, 1% of the population, and that you're going to see things differently than 99% of the people in the world. And all of the other career types, as it's said sometimes, we have a purpose that shines through us like the energy of the sun, whereas you are the only type that's designed to reflect and to sample and to even magnify what's around you. So it's going to make it easy for you to see and evaluate, what's healthy or not healthy. You're reflecting the light of the sun like the moon, with this glow that's subtle but has this enormous influence, especially when you are seen by others. Know that, and we'll look at this in a minute, you have that unique connection to the cycles of the moon. So there's a potential for this mystical life that most of us are never, ever going to understand or have access to. So take your time when making your decisions. Place is everything for you. We've said that a couple times. Finding your place, Brian, in the heart of the community or the center of a group is going to be what gives you that ability to feel free to sample and reflect the information and the energy. And it's going to allow you to fulfill your purpose. You're here to be accepting of others, to reflect the truth, as we've said, and to teach the rest of us, I don't say to go with the flow, but to flow with the rhythm and the diversity of nature and the cosmos. And to do this, you got to be able to freely move through the environment. And also, you got to feel free to leave when it's time for you to leave. In that, if you remain in an unhealthy environment for too long, you may end up taking on the energy and be really, really drained of your vitality. So discernment, selectivity about who you are in an inner circle with. Again, operating with your very different set of rules and marching to the different beat of your drummer. Know that to honor and respect your uniqueness is what's going to keep you aligned. It's the key to being recognized. It's the key to being in the right place so that you can fulfill your purpose. And that with your undefined identity and direction function, that when you're with people who have it defined, like myself, that defined direction and identity individuals are here to initiate you as the evaluator and to introduce you to new places and people. However, it's your job to be discerning as to whether or not that new place or that new person is right for you or not, so that you don't become attached or you don't become, too dependent. You really, really, really want to practice being like Teflon and not letting anything stick to you. Again, one of your fears might be invisibility, of not being included. Given this happens, this might have you enter an environment to gain attention. So understand that your aura and your nonverbal presence and its, already natural attunement to the rhythm of the cosmos is always going to put you in the right place. So, confusion, being overcome by others' energy, overcome by others' expectations of you. It's essential for you in your life to find your own space, a dedicated creative space for you where you can be alone and literally shake off the energies and the conditioning that you've been exposed to on a daily basis. So finally, to stay neutral, to avoid identifying with other people's, I don't want to say pain, but with their energy, and to remain the sampling observer, to become comfortable with your lack of fixedness, and to learn how to follow the lunar cycle. We'll look at that in a minute. And to test the auras of the people around you, to see what feels good and what does not, so that you're not distracted by the openness that's in your design, and you do develop that great wisdom. And how you do that is asking, who am I right now? Who am I today? Can I be myself? Will I remain invisible, or am I going to be seen? Am I able to freely move within these environments? And do I and others appreciate my uniqueness? Am I practicing unattachment so that I can be reflective? So that's your gentle, unobtrusive, and quiet personal interaction style. What do you have to add to that, Brian?
I would just say, so much of that is true for how I feel. I've been called aloof and
Cool.
referred to as aloof many, many times. And I used to think of it as a negative, and wanted to, be more extroverted and things like that. But I think having this understanding of, I don't know, just puts it all into better perspective overall.
Do you, this is Tuck's curiosity. Do you experience the other types, particularly maybe emotional people and or express builders, as loud? And I mean by not so much tonality, vibrationally. Does it feel loud to you?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
And kind of just emotionally overwhelming. And I used to just think it was me being a guy, like I would just shut down. And there might be part of that, but yeah, there's times when I do sense that, and or I get swept up and I get caught up into the emotion of something that's happening, and then later I'll walk away, and like an hour later, I'll come back down to normal. Like, wow, why did that just happen?
Yeah.
Or how did I get there? And I think that's where you start to question yourself. You're like, you really start questioning yourself. So having this understanding definitely helps in that regard, because it puts you in the position to kind of even pause mentally. I've had to practice a lot more mindfulness for myself, just so I could separate the difference between what's happening inside me versus what's happening outside of me.
Yeah. Nothing like the pause. Nothing like a pause. Yeah. Any questions for Brian before we move into the decision-making strategy piece?
Yes.
Oh,
I
great.
do have a question.
Mhm.
I have a daughter, 18 years old daughter that is evaluator. And Brian, I don't know how old you are, but I would like that you try to remember how was your adolescence. because I do have a questions there. I don't know if sometimes she is reflecting the mood of us in the house, or it is her behavior. I have some doubts there. Can it be?
Sure. You know, it's my opinion that evaluators definitely need to find time for themselves and be away a little while and just regain their centeredness. So if she doesn't have a practice where she's practicing centeredness or some mindfulness or something like that, I would encourage her to do that. I wish I would have a long time ago. In my late teens, I was trying to live up to my parents' expectations, which a lot of people do. But I think as an evaluator, especially with that open identity, you're so susceptible at that age to what else is happening out there, that it can be challenging. So I would encourage someone at that age to really explore and experiment with the different interests at the time, and not just get locked down into like one career path or one thing because they think that's where it's supposed to go. Because what I'm learning is when I do that, I'm not being true to who I am. And when I start to, when I do start to share or talk about the things I'm interested in now, it's harder because it's like I'm afraid of what someone's going to think about those sort of things because it doesn't fit the mold. And where in reality, you know, our position is not to fit the mold. It's to quietly kind of be a role model and step out into our own thing, and where other people can start saying, okay, that's okay to do whatever that one thing or whatever that thing is that they're happy about. Does that help?
Yes, actually, it does very much. Very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I love the word sample when you said sample the different paths, possibilities, Brian, tying it right back to your sampling word. That was really, really helpful. So thank you.
And I recall back just quickly too on environment. You know, I grew up in a small rural farm town, and I didn't realize it. I would say it was limiting me in opportunity, but it never really understood kind of where that was coming from. Because I probably have more of an interest in water and probably like oceanography and other things like that. But I limited myself, and then I started not believing that I could do those things because it wasn't like in my environment. So if you have an evaluator, I mean, they love travel, subconsciously, unconsciously. And so showing them different environments, showing them different things that are available would really help them to tap into those things.
Okay, she's lucky in that way. Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes. Possibilities. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so into your decision-making strategy, Brian, success code number 3. Well, let's look at where not to make a decision first. Let's look once again at this slide. It is no surprise that when we use our thinking minds, which is what we have become, thinking, decision-making people, that it is going to take us off track, particularly you, with all 9 of your functions white and open. Having the mind operate out of those open functions can throw you off track, have you second guess yourself, do things in order to fit in, do things in order not to stand out, do things based on the peer pressure of the people around you. And the one that I really see a lot with advisors, I don't know enough evaluators, is that I see advisors being recognized. So the blinders are up and they don't even see the recognition when it comes. I imagine that may be similar for evaluators, given they are in the shadows and the distractions of the open functions versus living authentically from who they are. So we're not going to make our decision from our minds. We're going to make it from our decision-making strategy, which for you is to wait, to reflect, and then discuss. You're waiting to be initiated, and then you're waiting to reflect and discuss so that you get to full clarity before engaging. So what you're waiting for is an offer. What you're waiting for is an invitation, in that you're not designed to initiate yourself. And your lunar cycle is going to begin when that important offer is made and extended and accepted. And as you move through that lunar cycle, you're going to progress towards whatever your full clarity is. So take your time, reflect on what's correct for you, discuss the options with others, especially if you have a group of trusted confidants. Again, not for advice. You're doing this to articulate your own thoughts and to hear your own potential truth. And know that as you change the environments, your perceptions are going to change, and more importantly, be refined over time, so that you do have clarity to the decision that you are looking to make. So again, it's about articulating your own thoughts, to hear your truth, and know that the quality of your environment, the quality of your associations, and how you're filtering that information is going to refine that choice for you or not. So don't allow yourself to be homogenized, pressured, rushed, and know that when it happens, it's going to come suddenly with this really deep inner sense of knowing as to whether or not that offer is right for you or not. And it may take more than one monthly cycle for you to obtain that clarity. Here's your visual for how wait, reflect, and discussing operates for you. You wait for the offer or the invitation, and then you allow time, you wait and allow time, the monthly lunar cycle, to reflect on the decision, discuss it with others. You'll feel that deep inner sense of sudden knowing, to where you can take action, knowing that the mind may come in and take you off track. So I have in here a way for you to look at how the evaluator process works in terms of waiting and in terms of what you can rely on. You know, remembering that evaluators have no fixed definition and therefore no real personal energy that they can consistently rely on. What they do have are these dormant hanging traits that you see here. These are receptor traits, and each one of them is seeking the harmonic connection on the other end of that strength. Remember, they're looking to complete that circuitry that we looked at, the circuit in the earlier classes. Therefore, what evaluators do can rely on are their monthly connections that come through the planetary transits and or the transits of the moon. Here we're looking at the moon, and the moon literally moves through all 64 traits in the design every month. And it's because of this, you know, this cycle of the moon that the evaluator can begin to trust something. And as the moon moves, as you see here, counterclockwise around the wheel through all of those 64 traits, it will light up, it will activate individual aspects of the chart. And as the transits cycle through the design on this daily basis, it's going to create definition. The transits are connecting up to already activated traits in the chart, and it completes the circuitry, it creates a definition, it defines that strength, and it creates and connects those functions, and it does so, remember, only for short periods of time. The consistency is going to come in recording these daily transits monthly, over and over, until that sense of consistency and reliability is obtained. So the consistent pattern for you as an evaluator is the cycle of the moon as it transits through the 64 activations in the design every month. And the consistency is what defines the decision making. The lunar cycle pattern is the evaluator support, and it defines the evaluator's innate sense of self, which is never revealed on a moment-to-moment basis, but through that rhythm and flow of that full lunar cycle. And so in the example here, in the natal design, you can see the 37 is activated in that particular career design. Here's a transit, that has the 40 activated in the position of the moon, which then connects to the 37, defines that strength, and ultimately colors in and defines the willpower and the emotional intelligence function, so that that can be felt, I'll say felt, and influenced, and only for a short period of time. And so another look, I think this is Sandra Bullock's design. I think this is still Sandra Bullock's design. Again, to remember that the movement is counterclockwise around the wheel in that 28th day monthly cycle. The moon's going to move through all 64 of the traits in the career design, approximately 2 traits per day. So in her case, we start with the 53, we go to the 62, we go to the 56, and it gets mapped out. I'll show you how that looks in a minute, so that you can begin paying attention to the activations and how each trait and strength and function is lit up and activated on that regular basis, so that you can begin to see what's consistent for you. So again, in Sandra's chart, she has the 42 on the energy resource function. In the transit, she has the 53 that's activated in the position of the moon. And so at this point in time in the month, this strength gets complete, this circuit is completed, the strength gets defined, and for her, she gets an experience of her drive and stamina, the influence of the energy resource. And again, it's only for that very short period of time. Therein lies the consistency for the evaluator. Here are a few references for how you can find that monthly transit. Again, I'm going to show you Brian's in a minute. You can go to the Jovian archive. Where I went was to my body graph. And I don't know if you have this or not, Brian. I actually purchased the $68 version so that I could map out your monthly transits. However, there is a free version on my body graph if you guys prefer to go there. I'll put yours here since Tam is not here. Here is Brian's natal design. Here are his activations. I mapped out the 28-day cycle, the monthly cycle, beginning on June 1st of this month. And on that day, the moon was in the 55th trait, which you already have, Brian. So it activated a trait that you already have. It wasn't connecting something that wasn't connected. However, when I mapped out your lunar cycle, the first connection that you do have is the 22nd trait. So on June the 1st, June the 2nd, June the 3rd, June the 4th, with this particular body graph program, you're able to get every day's the activation. You can get all planets. All I have here is the moon, since that's what we're tracking. So the first full activation that connects something in your chart is on June the 2nd, and it's trait 22. So here's trait 22. You already have the 12 on the communication and action. That then fills in, lights up, completes that circuit, that strength. And on that day, Brian, you get a feeling for what it feels like to have your emotional intelligence function. I'm going to say you feel the influence of it from the outside world, from the planetary transit. And the same happens with the communication and action. So on that day, you feel that weather pattern from the outside world. I also went ahead and put your 27 in here. You have the 50, you connect up to the 27. So on this day, your sacral, the energy resource function, is being influenced, as well as the survival instinct. So you get a feel for what that is. I left the rest of them blank so that you could have an opportunity to fill them in, given you haven't already done that. and get a feel for what your monthly lunar cycle is like. Now, you may already have done that, so I'm going to stop talking for a minute to see if you have any comments or questions or contributions for the class based on this lunar cycle before I add more.
Yeah, just a couple questions. Because I did go out to my body graph and have the transit piece to see. Is there like a hierarchy then? Would you recommend evaluators focus more so on the moon's transit? Because what I've been looking at has been a little bit more on the entire planetary transits, and because of the planets moving slower, there's certain things that are, there's more channels that are longer lasting, obviously, than the moon. So it gets confusing to know like which to pay attention to more so.
It's interesting. Before I answer that question, I have a question. What in the outer planets that you're referring to?
Oh,
Do
well,
you
like,
have a feel for which ones are affecting you and influencing you now, since they are long term and have been there for a while?
well, right now I've got my 360 and my 952 channels that have been there for quite a while because of Pluto or Neptune, something really like that. So I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Here's what I would say, and I would love to hear from both Petra and Melissa from their perspectives as well. I am more about experience. What is the experience of? So I look at the transits like the weather pattern, like the rain. So how, when you go outside, how are you being affected by the rain? What are you doing, not to protect yourself, but to learn about? So it's the influences that are coming to you so that you can learn and become wise about those influences. I have the thought, if it were me and I went to focus on something or to pay attention to something, that's going to take me back into my brain and into my mind, and I'm no longer available for the experience. What I'm going to say really quickly, Brian, because I put this in here for you when I mapped it out. I don't know if you've seen this before. Natalie has her students do this in class 2. Have you seen this?
No, this is new.
Okay. She basically took these activations here and created this spreadsheet so that as you connect up, so we know your 22 connects these 2 functions, light those functions up. You're going to get a feel for what those functions are. What you're looking to do is to see, I'm going to say, how they pull you off track and or how you use the wisdom that you're gleaning from those functions being defined at that point in time, for your wisdom. I put Emma's in here, and that she did an exercise with her monthly transit for class 2, as well as the ones when we went to the open functions, so that she could begin seeing and being present to how those open functions are affected and influenced on the days that they get colored in, so that she stays present to utilizing the wisdom rather than being distracted. That's
That makes sense.
A lot of talking.
I've been doing something like that with journaling. I remember I started this in April, and when I first started, I woke up to I forget, it's the gate of shock, and I forget which gate it was, but the moon had hit that, and my dog had like this major health issue.
Wow.
And afterwards, I was like, wow, that is so weird that it was, came together in that way. And after that, I've been journaling a lot more and doing something similar.
Well, I put this in here so that you have it. I invite you, this is homework that Natalie would have given me for class 2, but we didn't connect in time, so that the evaluators could practice with their open functions and begin looking at what's healthy and what's unhealthy based on the monthly activation. So I'm going to give this to you and put this in here for you, and it may allow you to bring a different look to us as well in the last 3 classes that we go through. I haven't had the opportunity, Brian, to work with that many evaluators over my years. And so I'm open to learning, and if there's anything Melissa and or Petra that you guys have to make as a contribution based on your experience, I think it'd be great for us to hear from you.
Yes, I can add something. Thanks for asking.
Mhm.
So for some important decisions, 28 days may not be enough. So that's the experience that I get as a feedback from evaluators. So Brian, you may need to go through the cycle for important decisions more than once in order to know. So it really depends, but 28 days, this is the minimum.
Beautiful, thank you. Anything for you, Melissa?
I have a friend that's an evaluator, and I know that it gave her a lot of peace to start charting the moon cycle, because a lot of times she didn't understand why she would be all over the place. 1 minute she'd be emotional, and the next minute she'd be really clear, and then the next minute she couldn't think. Like, she started to realize that the effects on the, how it was affecting her chart. And I think it gave her a lot of clarity to go and do this.
It must. Thank you for that. I the few times that my mind has been defined by planetary transits, I've actually thought I might be going slightly mad. So I have no idea, Brian, what it must feel like to be you with all of those functions open and open to the influence, of the influences of the outside world as well as the planetary transit. So, anything for you to add before I go into your success codes?
Nope, not at the moment.
All right, great. So success code number 4, we're going to look at the key indicators, which are always going to immediately let us know whether we are on or off track. For the evaluator, the on track is awe, wonder, and delight, like a real feeling of, excitement about being, excitement's my word, awe, wonder, and delight about being fully recognized for the gifts and talents and the guidance and the evaluating that they are able to provide for others. When you're off track, possibly not being seen, feeling somewhat invisible, not acknowledged for your uniqueness, your rarity, your gifts and your talents and your contribution, there will be that sense of disappointment. And it's always made sense to me when it was explained to me that as children, an evaluator would come into the world with all of these functions, wide slam open, unconditionally loving and present to the world, and then smack, that, we come into a world, all of us do, where adults live in fear and worry and anxiety. I can imagine taking that in and amplifying it without really understanding it, how that would create a sense of disappointment for an evaluator. So how disappointment might show up for you: low energy, lack of passion for the business that you were in, too many things you should be doing. That'll be interesting to get your feedback on these, Brian. Dishonest people not following through with their commitments, being the regular default to accommodate everybody else's needs first, and others claiming your wisdom without giving you the credit or the acknowledgement. Surprise on the other side, feeling at one, connected to everything, being asked to be involved, to make a contribution, and that easy feeling, that natural feeling when you're recognized for your value and your perception. People considering your wisdom, not only understanding it, but recognizing it and knowing its value to the community, and then feeling at home in nature, and the realization of, I'm going to say, not only your privilege of being alive, but your privilege of being in the center of the hierarchy, and that life is so amazing. And so any final words for you, Brian, as to this piece, or anything else you'd like to contribute?
I think having an understanding of this was helpful for me, especially on kind of understanding what surprise was and like when you would see surprise. For me, what resonates is like this delightful experience of things that kind of just pop up. That's been helpful. But yeah, I can totally relate to all those disappointment kind of things. I got really sick as a result of some work and things like that. And as I reflect back, I'm like, yeah, that was just a bad time, bad environment, other things like that. And so that was kind of a wake-up call for me. So yeah, totally resonates.
So are you planning to move into the certification? I don't remember. Were you planning?
Yeah, that's definitely my plan.
Okay, great. I'm curious as a 5/1 because my experience of 5/1s is they have really, really big energy, and integrating that with the quiet and the unobtrusive, like it'll be interesting to follow you through the certification process. So thank you so much for your
Yeah,
contribution.
I'm excited. I'm curious to see how my environment style of solo works with like wanting to be at the center of a group.
Yeah.
Gordana asked a question about identifying with a lot of this. I mean, when I read through that last slide of feeling disappointed and surprised, if it does seem kind of general to some extent, where I'm like, yeah, everybody should feel that way. Plus, there's a lot of times when I just think as an evaluator, I'm like, yeah, everybody should feel this way anyways. So I'm curious anybody's thoughts on that, because I resonate with some of the other types as well.
I'm all about presence versus being in the thinking mind, and what comes to me, even because I'm a fairly defined and colored in express builder, and one of my favorite things is being inspired, being surprised, being open to possibilities. And so the way I sense that is the deeper work that I do, the greater degree to which I transcend my conditioning. I'm releasing my conditioning and looking to reclaim those aspects of my open function. Let's just say that I've given away or where I've been traumatized. The more present I am in those white and open functions, and the greater tuned I am, the excited I get with my defined areas, I am fully available to myself, others, and God. And who wouldn't be surprised with that? Who wouldn't be at peace with that? Who wouldn't be satisfied with that, right? So I tend to agree that as we are all in alignment with our definition and fully open in our open functions, that we're going to feel aligned with what these key indicators are. And are we all not connected anyway? So would there not be something that feels same? That's my esoteric, lofty way of answering your question. Anybody else have a response? Okay.
Maybe because I have so many open centers.
Yes, you do. As I remember, Gordana, yes, you do.
Because I have just 2 defined centers. Maybe that's why it's for me so, I mean, I feel absolutely identified with everything. And now listening to the number of Brian, 5/1, my daughter is also 5/1.
Yeah. My I think I shared with this, my older sister is an advisor, only 2 functions defined. And we came into this world of human design and BG5 together. And she frequently would listen to the definitions, the descriptions of, at that time, the reflector, now the evaluator. And there was a lot of familiarity there for her as well. She's a mental advisor.
Yeah. Well, I have to study a lot that I came to conclusion. I think I have to warm up a chair more.
Yes. Yeah. Experience is everything too. I really do believe that. I do want to let you guys know that Connor came through the course. When I came through the course, she is an evaluator and always had a lot of really beautiful things to share. So, this has been in our webinar for a while. I've kept it here so that you can read it when you get a chance to read to download the PowerPoint, given you haven't done that yet. The assignment is to read about the reflector and authority in the definitive book. And given that you are an evaluator, so this will be for you, Brian, and you, Tam, ask yourself these questions about being noticed, different, the environment, sampling. And for the rest of us, because we're not an evaluator, what did we notice about Brian today? And what do we notice about other evaluators in class? Brian, I have experienced you today beautifully at the center of our community, and I am deeply, deeply grateful for your ability and your commitment and your contribution to the class today. And it has indeed been a surprise and deeply satisfying. So thank you. Anything else for you?
I appreciate the being able to add value, and hopefully people can understand the evaluator a little bit more. And I thank you for your comments and your feedback. It's definitely helpful in understanding the type and just that difference compared to everybody else.
I know I want to sing "We're All in This Together," but I won't. Thank you. I will ask my illustrious class partners, Melissa, if you have anything to add, and or Petra, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't really have anything to add. It's just really nice to hear from an evaluator directly about their perspective, because I think it is challenging for other types to understand.
Yeah, thank you. And to hear your voice, Petra?
Yeah, I was deeply touched by what Brian shared, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. Any last questions, you all, before I?
Yeah.
Oh, Momo,
Yes.
great. Yes, Momo.
Yes, recently I was involved in a startup team, and luckily we have all types of these career types people in one team. And one is evaluator, and one is manifesting generator with 9 functions all defined. So I was pretty curious if they two will work together, what will happen? Is it like for the reflector or evaluator feel much more like a lot of pressure, or yeah, I just curious if like they are kind of like very extreme 2 ways. One is all defined, one is none of the functions was defined. Yeah.
And you haven't been with them yet. Is that what you're saying? You're not there yet. That's something you're going to participate in?
I'm already doing this.
Have you noticed anything so far?
Not very obviously, but I think should be something interesting happen.
Yeah. I'm going to let Brian respond in a minute. I go back to what Ra Uru said frequently, and that was in the exercise of life itself, we, for the most part, are, for the most part, interacting with the not self of other people, given they don't have the information and they haven't embarked on their own personal journey of, releasing their conditioning. And so it would be interesting, Momo, given the 9 function person is not operating in alignment, with their design, that would be a lot of, I'm going to put in quotes, dysfunctional energy for the evaluator to take in and reflect. Number one, if they're not present, it would be resistance to resistance. If they are, I make up, the evaluator could let it flow through and not be triggered by it. But you're dealing with personalities, and you're not real clear whether they're fully present or not. I think it'd be a great experiment for you to observe. What would you say, Brian?
Yeah, I concur with what you just said. I would have a conversation, pretty regular conversations with the evaluator to get a sense for how they're feeling, what they're sensing, both good and bad, and give them a space to have a conversation, and supportive in a supportive environment, as I say environment, that made me crack up. Because you're going to give that person time and space to actually articulate what's happening, give them some processing time, and you'll then be a little bit more aware of like what that other person is expressing or not expressing. But yeah, I feel like really giving that person the space just to have the conversation and let them, because if they are in a challenge situation or they're carrying a lot of energy or something from the other person, they need an outlet to let that off, so that they don't get frustrated, angry, or any of the other, any of those other more negative sides. And they would probably feel much support and really be surprised that you were open to having that conversation with them and letting them speak their mind.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Oh, advisor that you are. That's really, that was great, Brian. Thank you. You are, given that you're headed forward for your certification, you are going to be a brilliant support for others as an evaluator. So really, thank you for all that you have brought to the class today. Next week, y'all, we're going to talk about assimilation. And I'm telling you, it's going to be lots and lots of fun. It's a whole different, like, we're going to go off into another pathway. I'll say it that way. Looking at the different assimilation styles, independent, collaborative, subjective, synthesis, and then yours, in being an evaluator, the objective. And it's action-packed, so get your sleep before you come. And as always, thank you all so much for your presence and your listening and your interest and your passion around this work. And thank you so much for being here. If there is nothing else for you all, I'm going to ask you to unmute, say thank you, Brian, and goodbye. And we will meet again next week.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you,
Thank
Doug.
you, Brian. Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks all.
Great class.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.